Thank you so much, Cianna Hope, for joining me today, our very own that works with us. Let's talk about it. You have your own podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Let's talk about it.
Yes. I have my own podcast called Take a Seat Podcast, where I really share stories of, I like to say that guests tell their stories, personal stories about just life experiences that we can all grow from, learn about, and be inspired by. That's what really Take a Seat is all about. I got the inclination maybe my senior year of college that I wanted to go into the podcast industry, but I wasn't ready. So I did my research and I used my senior year of college to just really delve into what it takes, how to launch, what do I need, and all of that stuff. So once I got that solidified, I thought about, okay, so what is this content going to be about? You know, what message am I going to put out into the world? What do I want listeners to know? What do I want people to know? How do I want them to feel when they come on the show? And so transparency, honesty, being comfortable, those were the three things that I wanted for listeners and also for guests, to be able to be comfortable when they sit down with me and be able to also share their experiences that a lot of people don't know about.
So you talk about process. It took your process to get this thing started. A lot of people, aka what I like to say, millennials, don't understand the word process. It takes time to get stuff to happen. Let's elaborate on that part in itself.
Yes. Oh my God. The planning process was definitely long. I'm the type of person that when I think of an idea, I'll sit on it, only because I don't want to rush things, but I'm also the type of person who feels like, there's a need for, to push things out.
Almost a sense of urgency.
Yeah, because I don't want it to die. I don't want this sense of urgency to die.
That makes sense.
But with this, I knew that I needed to take my time, because this was something that I was passionate about, and two, it was something that was going to be bigger than me. So I didn't want to push out any content or anything like that to where it's just like, okay, this is it. Like, you didn't do anything beyond that. Yeah. I didn't want to do that. So that's why I really took my time with the planning process. And once I did complete the planning, I still took time to think about other things, think about the people I would want to ask, think about, okay, who's my audience? And just all of those things when it comes to really branding and just also, wanting to share and bring awareness.
So when you pick or choose your guests, how do you choose them? We were just talking a second ago. I'm not going to go into that conversation, but when you choose your guests, how do you pick them? Like, how do you determine, okay, this will be something good to talk about?
It really just comes to me through the connections that I've made through college, or just by person-to-person contact, or just over the span of my lifetime, even though I'm young. But
my life, I'm 50 years old.
No, I'm in my 20s. I'm 22. So, cool. But I like to say that I do have a village and I have a community, and I have a network to where if I need someone, or if I would like to know someone's story, it's like, just for example, my mom. She knows many people in ways where it can help me. So therefore, I'll ask, like, okay, Mom, do you know someone about this situation? And then, for example, like my friends. I've even had friends on my podcast episode to talk about things that is very personable to them. Personal to them. So I just choose people based on connections and based on if I feel that their story, or if there's more that I want to know. Because I think that we all have a story, and we can all just, inspire or just learn from someone.
So what's the main message that you want to send to people who take a seat and listen to your podcast?
Wow, the main message, that's actually a very, very powerful question that you asked, because every episode is different. So every episode, from the episode that you maybe watched first, it may be something different that you take away than the next episode that you listen to. But the main thing is I want people to learn. I want people to also be aware more of themselves, because that's what Take a Seat is all about. It's not about necessarily the guest, but about the experience that they've been through. And so I use that as a means to, I use that as a means to allow people to know, okay, this is what you can do. This is how you can learn and go forth from there.
That makes sense. So at the end of the day, where can we find this podcast at?
So at the end of the day, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on radio, iHeartRadio. You can find the podcast on Podbean. You can also find the podcast on, what's the other one? The other one is Pandora. And you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Boom, boom,
yeah.
Boom. There's no excuse why people should not see this podcast or listen to this
right,
podcast.
Yes. And the reason that seems like a lot, that seems
That's
like a lot.
That's good, though.
Yeah.
You can be found on almost all platforms.
All social media platforms, yes, because I'm really trying to reach people who are willing to learn, who are willing to grow. And that's what I want. If I say this all the time on my podcast, I kind of end it saying, all I want you to do is just take one thing away. If you take one thing away from this podcast episode, I'm good. But I always say, meanwhile, I got a whole bunch of notes that I've taken away, because I learn a lot. I learned so much from my guests. I obtained so much wisdom. And that is the beauty of it. And that's what keeps me going a lot of times, because I feel like if I'm learning, someone else is able to learn as well. And I get so much feedback from listeners about how great the content is and how great the conversations are, because they're very, very personal. They're very, they make you evaluate yourself. And that's what I want, because in order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable, but also you have to self-evaluate who you are. And so that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast. And I'm hoping that any and everyone who listens, like I said, they're able to take at least one thing away. I'll be fine.